As an artist, I've always been interested in architecture. Art and architecture are very much closely related. And for me, the mediation in which I find is the ghost, the idea of what potentials could be. So the piece that I'm presenting in this biennial is titled The Parliament of Ghosts. The idea was borrowing from the railway system that the British had built in Ghana in the late 1800s and taking the residues of it. You know, the railway was built in Ghana mostly just to extract commodities as it was around the world. But in Ghana, it was built in the Gold Coast, in the coastal part of Ghana, and the railway was never really extended to the northern part. I'm very much interested in the work that goes on at the railway, but also the aesthetics, manifestations of things within those spaces. So I used to go there photographing activities of work and also going through the archive, but also interested in this idea of collecting, let's say, the residues of objects within those spaces, like the seats from the second-class coaches, the cabinets that were originally made in 1901 when the infrastructure was built by the British, and they used to keep tools and all kinds of things for the repair of the trains in it. So I began to believe that there was an element of, there was this element of ghosts, not just the ghost of the past, but also ghost of unrealized futures and potentials, which were somehow inhabited within these objects. So the idea was to collect them and use them in building new institutional spaces that could somehow inspire a much younger generation to relook at history and the various positions that it can take. And so within the context of the Parliament, the idea was to somehow reconstitute all these objects and materials and then bring them together so at least we could tell different stories with them. The design of the Parliament was originally meant to be like a theatre or a stage or something like that. But the most interesting thing about the Parliament is not just the fact that people are coming to use it. The most important thing about the Parliament is the objects that occupy or constitute the building of the Parliament itself, architecturally. In Ghana, of course, I developed the idea of the Parliament of Ghosts, but this time around I was looking at it as an architectural form. So I built the Parliament into the landscape, into the ground. So there are photographs within the exhibition here, which somehow shows you the processes of the building of the Parliament, looking at the excavation of the land versus even the idea of building this architectural form or space, but at the same time, let's say school kids using it as a workshop, sites of interventions, doing all kinds of, taking residues of, let's say, traditional architectural forms or all kinds of objects and situating them within the context of the building of, let's say, the Parliament of Ghosts.